So I want to talk to you today about worship. Many times we pigeonhole. I really love how this is segueing with what Pastor Doug said. Many times we think of worship as something that we do on a Sunday, right? It is something that happens. Stay in the middle. Marilyn says, stay in the middle. Yeah, that's really hard for me. I really like to move. So I shall not be moved. Anyway, I will promise not to move. So worship oftentimes is we categorize it as something that we do as an experience on Sunday mornings or Sunday afternoons in our case, or something that we do in a devotional time. And that's true. That's a component. This is a component of what our lives are supposed to be. But if this is all you're doing as far as worship, you're depriving yourself seriously. That experience and that time with the Lord is a life-giving, life-affirming, life-building, life-remodeling, life upon life, because Jesus came to give us life abundantly. Lots and lots of life. And the way we get that is not just by coming here on Sundays, this is really good. This is wonderful. This wobbles. Listen to that. So, anyway, I'll put my thumb there. There, that's better. And so worship is just not a few songs or a prayer meeting, or it's not just that. What I really love that's happening here is we're transitioning and we're developing our worship ministry here, but it's just not for Sunday. It's just not for Sunday. So I want you to go to the book of Romans, chapter 12. And we're going to go through this for a little bit here. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in the view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God, which is your spiritual act of worship. So what's worship? Your life as a living sacrifice. That is worship. Not just singing some songs, which I totally love, not just getting great harmonies. Garth and I, we love music. Garth's a tuba player. I'm a tuba player. How good is that? So it's good. We should get together and do a duet soon. But it's not just great harmonies. And it's not just enjoying the presence of God when he comes on Sunday, if you're having that, or your devotional time. It's bigger. It's presenting our bodies as living sacrifices. What does that look like? What does it look like to be a living sacrifice? What's a sacrifice?
Death to self.
Death to self. What's a sacrifice? You know, when we see the biblical model of sacrifices, it used to entail animals and blood and gore, and it was pretty rough. You couldn't show it on TV today. It would be rough, right? Unless, anyway. But, so, sacrifice. Our lives are a sacrifice. These living sacrifices, set ablaze by the power of the Holy Spirit. Set ablaze by the fire of God. Burning in our lives. That's it is. So that fragrance from the altar that we are climbed up, we become very, very visual, and we even smell. So we even have a fragrance, and the fragrance of worship needs to be a part of our lives. But it's not that we smell like barbecue. That's not what I'm saying, that we smell like barbecue. But we need to smell like we've been with Jesus. And we need to look, the whole term Christian means little Christs. So we look like, we smell like, we exude Jesus. Living sacrifices. Which is our reasonable, actually I like in the King James, it's our reasonable act of worship in the key. Reasonable. So lying on an altar saying, God, I surrender everything is reasonable. How do you like that? That's just like, wait a minute, I'm fully alive. I don't necessarily want to do that. I've got my rights. I have rights. Like, we live in a society today that says we're all about rights. And whenever our rights get trampled, oh my gosh, we will tell everybody that our rights are trampled. But I'll tell you one thing, according to this, you have no rights. The only right you have is the right to die. To yourself. It's no longer I that lives, but it's Christ living in me. So I'm exuding Jesus. You should see Jesus in my life. You should. It's supposed to look that way. But listen to this. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. How does that happen? How do you transform your mind? Now, our minds are the places where most of us have these spiritual battles. Right? Can you do that? Doubt, fear, anxiety? All in our mind. How does that get transformed? One gets transformed by the blood of Jesus. That's the first thing. The second portion, it gets transformed, actually, by worship. That worship is going to transform me. Let's go on a little bit more. By the renewing of your mind, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. His good, pleasing, and perfect will. So there's a connection here between transformation and the will of God. You see that? You see that? There's a connection. You want to have a transformed mind? How does it get transformed? One of the ways that it transforms is found in 1 Thessalonians 5. Let's look at that. Let me just turn here. You know, I knew that I should have. There it is. I love this part here. Listen to this. Be joyful always. No, well, maybe just sometimes. Be joyful when you feel like it. Be joyful when it's convenient. Be joyful if you feel, that no. But listen to this. Be joyful always. Yeah. When is always? Rita, when is always?
All the time.
All the time.
Now.
Be joyful.
Now.
Now. And tomorrow. And the next day. Be joyful. Pray continually. Oh my goodness. Like I shared this, I'm the director of the National House of Prayer. And you would think that as this having this job, when I moved into this position, I thought that I would have gobs and gobs and gobs of time just to pray. I thought that was going to happen. I thought this is going to be so good. My friends were even jealous. They said, Chris, do you know what this means? You get to wait on the Lord all the time. And I said, hallelujah, yes, I do. It's going to be so good because I really love spending time with God. But it really didn't, that time of shutting in and being by myself with God is not as much as I really, really want it to be, because I've got a ministry that we're running and I got lots of administration to do. And I don't have a big staff. We used to have a big staff and now it's just me and Marilyn. So we've got lots and stuff. So how do I do that? How do I combat? How do I combat the work life and praying continually? How do you do that? Right? How? How's it work? Right? This is a big, tall order, Paul. I mean, seriously, first you're telling me to always be joyful. That's stressful. I gotta be joyful all the time, right? And then I gotta pray all the time, continually, right? So maybe we need to change some paradigms here, right? So is praying just me kneeling down and holding my hands together and just doing now may I lay me down to sleep in perpetuity? No. Or is it just me just rattling off my list to God, my ticker tape of things that I need? Is that prayer? No. Prayer is a dialogue. You know what? I'm finding even more, and I've been walking with Jesus for 51 years. And I find that even more, I am constantly talking to Father. And he, if I'm listening, is talking to me all the time. All the time. I want to encourage you to listen for him. This is worship. So, be joyful always. Pray continually. And give thanks in all circumstances. How are we renewing our mind? This whole thing, an attitude of gratitude, will really change how you move, operate. What comes out of your mouth really changes what goes on in your life. Right. Like, National House of Prayer, we have a mandate to pray for government and leaders. That's kind of what we built. This ministry's been focused on this for 20 years. So that's why we're in Ottawa, and we have a great job. I'm a political junkie. I worked in as a chief of staff for a member of provincial parliament. I was a riding association president and a VP on the federal side. So I'm politically, I like politics. I like the game of politics because it's a bit of a game. And but my call wasn't to play politics. My call in the engagement of politics was to be that living sacrifice in politics, so that I would engage with the member that was in my riding. It was to get close to that member, to walk with them, so that he could have the fragrance of Jesus around him, because I was a living sacrifice. So guess what I did with him? I prayed for him all the time, right? And when I was around, I brought the joy of the Lord. It's not a fake joy. It's real joy. Right. You see, when you have an attitude of gratitude, right, you learn. And now this is just something that you need to. I'm not just saying, okay, smarten up and be joyful and thankful. Like, come on, right? It's not like that. It's when you see God continually moving and working in your lives, and when you see we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. The word of your testimony is really, really important. So when God breaks out in your life, I want you to encourage you to do this. Write it down. Because you will forget. You will forget when God shows up in a big way. The children of Israel, they walked through a sea. The water, whoosh, you saw the movie with, Charlton Heston, walked right through. They had no sun, had a cloud to keep them not sunburned, and then there was light to keep them warm, and a fire by night to keep them comfortable. So they had a climate-controlled desert, right? Which is absolutely, and it didn't take them any time at all to start complaining. And they totally forgot that they just walked through, that were rescued from Egypt. That's human nature. That's what we're like. Well, that's how what an unrenewed mind is like. A renewed mind will be full of joy. Why? Because of what God has done for us. And when we look at and we write these things down and see where God broke into our lives, and we see this, we can say, when the enemy comes and tempts us with despair, we can pull it up in our notebook and say, here, look at that. Let me show you where God broke through. And he breaks through all the time. Pay attention. Watch what he's doing. One of my favorite things to say is, in the prayer movement, is we need to be watching. Jesus said this. I love this. He only does what he sees the Father doing. We can do that. We can see, but many times we don't pay attention to see what the Father is doing in our lives. We can. So I'm going to ask you this question. This is your homework. At the end of this Canada Day weekend, what is the Father doing in my family? Ask him. What are you doing in my family? and watch. And I'll tell you, every time I share this part, people are blown away because they go, oh, I wasn't paying attention. God is doing some amazing things in my family. He's doing, and you know, sometimes things move incrementally, that's true. But when we get a little bit of a move, we can rejoice. We go, look at that, I didn't see that coming. Right? Didn't see that at all. I'm going to share here. I had a couple, 2 Thursdays ago, I met with a pastor here in Ottawa. His name is Harold and his wife Ruth, and they pastor a church in Manotick called the Église Liberté, and it's the first time we got to meet them. They've been connected with NHOP for over 20 years, and we got to meet them. It was supposed to be a 1-hour coffee. It was a 4-hour coffee, and it was like the only reason why we had to go is because we had rehearsal, worship team rehearsal. We would have stayed probably the whole night with them because it was so good. And we were praying for the French people. We were praying for Quebec. We were praying for the Francophonie in Canada. And it was a wonderful time. I was sharing some of the goals and things that we want to see roll out from NHOP in regards to French Canada. And so that night, right, so we're praying, God, move in Quebec, move on behalf. And so that night we come to practice. And Eric's over here, if you met him. Eric's from Gatineau. And Eric shows up with a team of 3 others. Because they heard from the Lord to come and pray for Manotick. How cool is that? Wow. I mean, that was a fast prayer. But the thing is, I was praying for Quebec, and then they hear the testimony of what God is doing in Quebec, in house church movement. It's way bigger than I thought. It's way bigger, because if you don't have a renewed mind, you're not picking up things, and you're not grateful, and you see that, because this is what everybody says. Oh, there's only 1.5% believers in Quebec. That's what they say. Yeah. But God's moving in Quebec. Hallelujah. And he's doing something, and he's sending the likes like Eric to Manotick. What a blessing. How blessed are we Hallelujah. To have that team come and pray for people. You should go talk to Eric afterwards and let him tell you some of the testimonies, because they're really, really good. Really good. And he's been coming here. But that's just because we're praying. And God answers your prayers way faster than you think. But if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss it. It's true. You miss it. Don't miss it. Watch what Father is doing. Watch what he's doing in your family. Watch what he's doing in your jobs. Is he working in your job? He's always working in your job. Watch what he's doing in your local church. Watch what he's doing. Watch. Rejoice ever. Be joyful always. Pray without ceasing. In everything, give thanks. Why? It's the will of God. People want to know the will of God in their lives, and they're looking for this. It's really simple. I think this is a real. If you have an attitude of gratitude, and you come from this place, it is not, and it's like saying, "Oh, Chris, you've never been through tough stuff." I've been through tough stuff. Oh my gosh, I've been through tough stuff. I've been through things that I thought there's like, God, I cannot believe how tough this is. But God breaks through. And he's been faithful. I cannot think of a time, 51 years walking with Jesus, and I cannot think of a time that God was never faithful. Never. He's broken through. I'm going to share this story. I was doing a faith thing like Eric was. I was in my early 30s, and we were living by faith. Marilyn and I, we had one child at that time, and we were living in a place called Jordan Station. That's good. That's a good kind of prophetic place, Jordan. And we were on staff as full-time volunteers. Right? So we weren't drawing a salary, but we felt called to do this. And so we had to wait on the Lord, and God provided for us all the time. All the time provided for us. But sometimes it'd be like, it was like really narrow. It was be like, oh God, I don't have any food, I really need some, right? But we were working, and he always proved himself faithful. So this one particular day, this brother was coming over to our house, and I felt the Lord say to me, "There's a chicken in your freezer. I want you to give it to him." It was my only thing in the freezer. It was the only thing we had left. And I'm thinking, Lord, yeah, this is the only thing. So it's like, yeah, I just want you to give it to him. Okay. So we came and visited. We talked about things, and he was living a very similar life to us too. We were kind of faith people, and we were serving and had a heart. God was just speaking to us in terms of the prayer movement and engaging in prayer in a big way that way, and worship and 24/7 worship and that kind of things. And after we said, I said, oh, before you go, his name is Mike. Mike, before you go, just a sec, I got to give you something. So I go into the freezer and I put this chicken that I have, and it's a nice sized chicken. Right? I put it in a bag, and I said, here, take this. And you know what he says? Oh, I forgot. Just a second. I'll be right back. And he goes back out to the car, and he goes, gets a bag, and he comes and he gives me a bag, and it's a chicken.
Oh, look at that. Chicken gave it to me.
Isn't that something? But it was important that I gave it to him. We could have just said, oh, that's cute, right? But it was important that we were obedient.
Yes.
Because we were both obedient. Guess what? That was his last chicken.
Hallelujah.
That was his last chicken. But God showed up. And guess what came out of my heart? Thanksgiving. Gratitude. Joy. I mean, here it is, like 30-some years ago, and I can still share that story because I can draw back, and it's like, this is when God broke out. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimonies. So that's what worship is. That's not just one, I just want to encourage you in that. I want to close. You know, in Exodus 33, there's this part here where Moses and God is having this conversation, and the Lord shows up at the tent of meeting, and it says that the Lord and Moses spoke together as if they were old friends. As if they were old friends.
Verse 11.
Verse 11. Thank you. A transformed mind moves you into a place into a place of friendship with God. That you need to know that He delights in you. He delights in you. I'm going to say this again. He delights in you. He sees you and He says, I see Richard. And man, look at him. He says, look at him. He's fantastic. Look how he rides that bike and how he cleans it up. Whoa, that's a great bike. He delights in him. Many times we think that God's waiting for us to make a mistake so He can clobber us. He's waiting for us to screw up and say, no soup for you. Reference to Seinfeld. No. He wants you. He loves you as a friend, but He also loves you as a son and a daughter. And a renewed mind will own that and say, I'm a son, and my Father loves me. I'm a daughter, and my Father is crazy in love with me. So I want to encourage you with that. Worship, not just songs, but it's a renewed mind. So it's easy. So when stuff comes out of your mouth, check it. Be joyful. pray, talk to Papa all the time, back and forth, listening, and everything, give thanks. Because he's worthy, and he's good, and his mercy endures forever. So let's pray. Father, I thank you